can tell them.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, go. Okay, we are banished to the basement for the start of today's Kin 225 lecture. You can see things are in a bit of disarray here. So a few announcements before we get started here. So your Lab 1 revised due dates, you can see them listed there by your sections. These are a day later than your typical due dates. And that's because we have that holiday that's on next Thursday that I must admit I didn't plan well when laying out the course at the start of the year. So your lab due dates next week are a day later than usual because of the Thursday holiday. So you can see the different lab sections. It depends on what lab section you're in for your lab due date. You only need to answer the questions at the end of the lab for your lab report. So you don't need a title page or appendix. This is a little bit different from what's in your lab manual. And this is because our regular lab coordinator is right now on a leave of absence. And so Shane Schwarnbeck is the replacement. And I'm just trying to keep things simple for Shane and the teaching assistants. And so you just have to answer the questions at the end of your lab report. It should not take you more than 1 to 2 pages at the most to answer all those questions for each lab. Lab sections L01 and L03 will email your labs. So for next week, lab number 1, you'll email it to Aaron Hidalgo Mazia, and you can see his email address. And lab sections L05 and L07 will submit their labs to Doug Renshaw. Again, that's lab number 1 will be submitted to those 2 email addresses. You're just going to be submitting your lab number 1 at different times and to different TAs depending on your lab section. Usually you hold the optional in-person lab sessions on Thursdays. So there's a sign-up sheet that Shane Schwarnbeck would have sent around. But we did realize that next Thursday, of course, is the holiday. So we're going to be holding the optional session on Tuesday instead. So if you want to show up for this non-mandatory session to get an experience of next week's lab, it will be held on Tuesday instead. And I think the time is Tuesday at 10:30. But check the email from Shane Schwarnbeck for the sign-up sheet and for the exact time. The lab manual is posted in the introductory module on Canvas. So I had a few messages from students saying that they couldn't find the lab manual. I don't think it's actually posted in the lab section module. It is posted in the introductory session of the course. So the very first class of Kin 225, I posted the lab manual for you in that module. If you can't find it, email me and I will send it to you. My email address is right there, philcholobeck@usask.ca. If you don't know your lab section, So whether you're in L01, L03, L05, or L07, you can email Karine Wagner at that email address. She said that she would be willing to help you guys out with that. Or you can email me and I can look it up in my Excel spreadsheets and send you your lab section. Next week, you will be doing lab number 2, the force-velocity relationship. I've kind of covered that in a couple of lectures now, so I'm not going to cover it further, at least not today. You should be able to answer all the questions from that lab, either from what we've already covered in class or from the references at the end of the lab. If you have questions on the labs or any other course content, don't hesitate to email me at phil.chillibeck@usas.ca. I can answer your questions either by email, or if you want to set up a meeting with me, I can easily send up an individualized Zoom meeting with you to answer your questions. So again, don't hesitate to email me at that email address. For today's class, we're talking about more steps in muscle contraction. So I'm going to cover a number of the slides that I didn't get a chance to cover during our in-person session on Wednesday. So those slides involve conduction of an action potential from the neuron, and specifically the axon in the neuron, to the muscle fiber membrane, and exactly how the electrical charge across the membrane changes in that process. So I've got a number of slides that I've posted for you, and I'm going to cover that in the next 2 sessions that I'm posting here.